Welcome to Spotlight Murders. I am your host, Kieran Caldwell, and today I'm going to take you through a story that reads like a fashion thriller, but the blood was real, the betrayal genuine, and the consequences devastating. This is the story of Maurizio Gucci, heir to one of the world's most prestigious fashion empires, and how love turned to obsession, divorce turned to revenge, and a name synonymous with luxury became forever linked with murder. Obsessed with the dark side of fame? Step behind the red carpet and into the crime scene with Scoob, the AI-powered podcast that digs deep into the celebrity murders that shocked the world. From Gucci's murder to the tragic death of John Lennon and the enduring mysteries around Tupac and the horror of the Tate LaBianca murders, Spotlight Murders unpacks the fame, fallout, and facts you didn't hear in the headlines. With short, gripping episodes perfect for your daily crime fix, Scoob is the go-to for true crime lovers who crave more than just surface details. Hit follow, subscribe to Spotlight Murders, and start your deep dive into the twisted side of celebrity today. Only on Scoob, available on the App Store and Google Play. Coming back to Maurizio Gucci's murder case, let's start with the fateful morning that shook the fashion world. Picture this. Monday morning, March 27th, 1995. Milan awakens to another day of elegance and commerce. In an apartment on Corso Venezia, a man is getting ready for what he doesn't know will be his final day on Earth. Maurizio Gucci steps into his expansive marble-tiled bathroom, the morning light filtering through expensive fixtures. At 46, he's finally found peace after years of turmoil. His divorce from Patrizia Reggiani was finalized just months ago, and he's deeply in love with Paola Franchi, the woman who has brought joy back into his life. He showers, contemplating the day ahead. First, a 9:30 a.m. meeting with Antonietta for valuable input on his latest business venture, a chain of luxurious boutique hotels he's planning to call Paradise in a Jar, inspired by a book of Chinese fairy tales. Then, lunch with his lawyer, Franchini, hopefully joined by Paola. He's excited about trying out a new set of billiard sticks at home later. Maurizio dresses carefully in a gray Prince of Wales suit, crisp blue shirt, and, tellingly, a Gucci tie. Even divorced from the company, he still appreciates the craftsmanship. His Tiffany watch catches the light as he slips it on. Into his pocket goes a gold-laden good luck charm, a symbol of his renewed optimism. In the dining room, Paola's Somali maid serves breakfast, while their cook Adriana prepares the meal. Maurizio browses the morning news, sipping coffee and enjoying a breakfast roll. Paola, watching her waistline, opts for yogurt. They exchange smiles and affectionate gestures, the comfortable intimacy of two people who've found happiness together. "I'll see you for lunch," Maurizio promises, clasping Paola's hand before heading to the hallway. He puts on his overcoat against the March morning chill, embraces Paola once more. "Go back to bed if you like, sweetheart," he says tenderly. "There's plenty of time until lunch. No need to rush." These would be the last words Paola would ever hear him speak. At 8:40 a.m., Maurizio Gucci walks up the steps to his office building at Via Palestro 20. It's a routine he's performed countless times, but today, death is waiting. As he approaches the entrance, a man pretends to examine the building's address numbers. This casual observer is actually a hired killer, and in a car nearby, Orazio Cicala, a debt-ridden gambler turned getaway driver, keeps the engine running. What happens next is swift and brutal. The gunman approaches Maurizio, draws his weapon, and fires. Not once, not twice, but multiple times. The execution is methodical, professional. One shot to the temple delivers the colpo di grazia, the merciful coup de grace, a signature of mafia-style killings. But the killer isn't finished. In the chaos, the building's doorman, Onorato, is also shot. Unlike Maurizio, Onorato will survive, but he'll carry the trauma of this morning forever. 6 shell casings scatter across the floor. The killer flees, jumping back into Cicala's waiting car. By 9 a.m., they've reached Arcor, and the killer casually mentions to Cicala that he might have shot the doorman too. Meanwhile, in the building's foyer, lawyer Fabio Franchini arrives for his scheduled meeting with Maurizio. Instead of finding his client waiting, he discovers a scene of horror. Maurizio lies lifeless, blood pooling beneath him. Franchini, visibly desolate, sits on the cold floor beside the body, unable to process what he's seeing. He remains there for hours as authorities arrive. The carabinieri arrive first, followed by ambulances that draw curious crowds outside the building. Among the officers is Corporal Giancarlo Togliatti, a tall, lanky, blonde officer with 12 years in the homicide division. His recent expertise has been resolving violent conflicts among Albanian immigrant factions, but this case is different. Investigating the murder of a prominent businessman in broad daylight is unprecedented for Milan. When Togliatti is told the victim's identity, his initial reaction is skepticism, underscored by a quizzical smile. To him, the Gucci name means the renowned Florentine leather goods enterprise, not some Milanese business address. For me, he was a corpse, just like any other, he would later reflect, emphasizing the professional neutrality crucial to his role. Milan prosecutor Carlo Nocerino arrives to chaotic scenes. Media personnel jostle alongside paramedics and officers from multiple law enforcement agencies, the Carabinieri, Polizia, and even the fiscal police. Italy's complex law enforcement structure requires establishing jurisdiction, and Nocerino, worried about evidence contamination, quickly determines that the Carabinieri will lead the investigation. He orders the building's large doors closed and has the perimeter cordoned off to manage the swelling crowd. Then, he climbs the steps to examine Maurizio's body himself. What Nocerino observes chills him. The entry wound at Maurizio's temple shows signs of close-range execution. The skin and hair around the wound bear burn marks from gunfire proximity. "This is the work of a professional killer," he declares, noting the 6 shell casings marked within chalk demarcations. Yet something puzzles the investigative team. Despite the number of shots fired and the professional execution style, there are surviving eyewitnesses, Onorato and a young woman who narrowly encountered the fleeing assassin. For someone ensuring undetected professionalism, the operation seems strangely crude. Togliatti spends the first hour and a half meticulously logging details from Maurizio's remains, carefully removing blood-covered newspaper clippings and collecting his still-working Tiffany watch. But he realizes that unraveling the complexities of Maurizio's life will take much longer. In fact, it will span the next 3 years. To understand this murder, we must first understand what Maurizio Gucci had found in his final months, something that made his death even more tragic. For the first time in years, perhaps in his entire adult life, Maurizio had discovered genuine happiness. November 19th, 1994, just 4 months before his murder, Maurizio's divorce from Patrizia Reggiani was finalized. That Friday afternoon, he rushed home to surprise Paola Franchi, greeting her in their living room with a broad smile and 2 martinis. "Paola, starting today, I am a free man," he announced as they clinked glasses and shared a congratulatory kiss. Just a month earlier, Paola had finalized her own divorce, so they were both stepping into new chapters of their lives together. With his personal and professional challenges behind him, Maurizio felt a renewed sense of freedom and optimism. He immediately instructed Patrizia to stop using the Gucci name and initiated legal proceedings to secure custody of his 2 daughters. Those close to Maurizio observed that while he had no inclination to marry again, he did consider establishing a formal relationship contract with Paola. Paola herself harbored dreams of a romantic wedding in the snow-covered vistas of Saint Moritz, complete with a horse-drawn sleigh and furs by Christmas. Maurizio had also embraced a completely new lifestyle. Gone were the gray business suits and the crushing weight of CEO responsibilities. He packed away his formal attire, reserving it only for exceptional business engagements. Instead, he adopted a wardrobe of cotton twill pants, corduroys, and sports shirts, with ties displayed beneath luxurious cashmere sweaters rather than traditional jackets. Even without his company, Maurizio remained dedicated to his signature bella figura, the Italian commitment to presenting oneself well. He found joy in life's simple pleasures, jogging through the verdant paths of the Giardini Pubblici in running gear from the United States, cycling through Milan on a well-chosen touring bike. But perhaps most importantly, he was working to enhance his relationship with his daughters, Alessandra and Allegra. Determined not to repeat his own father's penny-pinching ways, he wanted to be the generous, present father he'd never had. The weekend before his murder, Maurizio chose to stay in Milan rather than travel to St. Moritz, a rarity for the Milanese upper class, who traditionally retreat to the Alps or seaside. He relished the city's simplicity. On Sunday morning, he and Paola wandered through the Navigli neighborhood's antique market beside two bustling canals. His only regret was missing time with his daughters. He'd briefly met Alessandra on Friday when she took her driver's test, and when she called the next day to announce her success, Maurizio promised a father-daughter trip to St. Moritz the following weekend. Those plans would never materialize. It was their final conversation. Sunday night found Maurizio and Paola enjoying dinner and a movie with friends. Later at home, they discussed potential names for his hotel venture, settling on Paradise in a Jar after reading Chinese fairy tales together. This was a man who had found his paradise, and someone was about to destroy it forever. What really happened in the final moments before fame turned fatal? On Scoob, we don't just report the crimes. We uncover the untold truths behind the most haunting celebrity murders. From the last sightings of John Lennon and the unsolved shooting of Tupac Shakur to the disturbing demise of Bob Crane, every episode peels back the curtain on the chilling details most people never hear. With a sharp focus on missed warnings, strange behavior, and overlooked evidence, Scoob's Spotlight Murders delivers short, addictive episodes that bring you closer to the truth, without the fluff. Join 50,000 plus true crime listeners who know there's always more to the story. Download Scoob now on the App Store or Google Play. Back to the Gucci case, while Maurizio basked in his newfound happiness. Across Milan, his ex-wife, Patrizia Reggiani, was consumed by a very different emotion, rage. The divorce hadn't just ended their marriage. It had stripped her of everything she believed defined her worth. Patrizia could not accept losing her considerable fortune, her prestigious name, and the associated status and privileges. In her mind, Maurizio's unforgivable act wasn't being an absent father or inattentive husband. It was taking away her identity as a Gucci. Rumors of Maurizio's potential marriage to Paola reached Patrizia, who feared the prospect of them having a child together. Channeling her anger, she embarked on a creative project, a 500-page manuscript blending fact and fiction, ominously titled Gucci vs. Gucci. But Patrizia's creativity wasn't limited to writing. She enlisted help from her friend Pina Oriema, a woman who had fallen on hard times after a failed business venture left her drowning in debt. Pina had even confessed to stealing 50 million lire, about $30,000, from her nephew's business cash register where she briefly worked. Seeking escape from her troubles, Pina was willing to assist Patrizia, who offered accommodation in a Milan hotel, notably not in her home, as neither her daughters nor household staff were fond of Pina. The relationship between these two women would prove toxic and ultimately deadly. Patrizia possessed the motivation and money. Pina brought desperation and a crucial misconception. You see, Patrizia harbored a stereotypical belief, what Pina would later call her super northern Italian mentality, that assumed all southern Italians, like Pina, were connected to criminal organizations like the Camorra, the notorious Neapolitan mafia. This prejudiced assumption would become the foundation of a murder plot. But before the killing, there was another revealing incident that showed Patrizia's true character and her willingness to manipulate even her own daughter. In June 1994, Maurizio made a generous gesture for his daughter Alessandra's 18th birthday, presenting her with 150 million lire, approximately $93,000. "I want you to be responsible for the money and manage it as you please," he told her, suggesting the funds could finance her debutante ball. Maurizio's intentions were noble. He wanted to teach his daughter financial responsibility while ensuring she had a memorable celebration. But Patrizia had other plans. Despite Maurizio's wish for Alessandra to manage the money herself, Patrizia commandeered the party planning. She arranged for both herself and Alessandra to undergo cosmetic surgery to enhance their appearance for the celebration. Patrizia altered her nose while Alessandra opted for breast enhancement. The grand event took place on September 16th at Via Borromeo di Cassano d'Adda, just outside Milan. Over 400 guests arrived to a candlelit setting. Following a lavish dinner, the celebrated Gypsy Kings took the stage, a costly surprise orchestrated by Patrizia. Notably, Maurizio did not attend his own daughter's celebration. Instead, Alessandra's godfather, Giovanni Valcavi, welcomed guests alongside Patrizia and Alessandra. During the dinner, Patrizia approached Cosimo Auletta, the attorney overseeing her divorce settlement, with a chilling question. "Avocado, what would happen if I decided to teach Maurizio a lesson?" When the confused lawyer asked what she meant, Patrizia clarified with deliberate emphasis. "What would happen to me if I got rid of him?" Auletta, taken aback and deeply uncomfortable, quickly changed the subject. Later, in his office, he declined further representation, advising Patrizia to stop such talk and informing both Franchini and Patrizia's mother of these unsettling discussions. Days after the lavish party, the financial reckoning arrived. Maurizio called Alessandra to his office on Via Palestro, the same building where he would later be murdered. The bank had informed him that her account was overdrawn by 50 million lire, roughly $30,000. "The bank tells me your account is overdrawn by 50 million lire," Maurizio told his daughter firmly. "I don't intend to cover this amount, and I want an explanation as to where the money went." Clearly distressed, Alessandra admitted, "I'm sorry, Papa. I know I have let you down. I don't know what it all went for. You know Mama took over all the arrangements. I promise I will go over all the accounting. I promise it won't happen again." When Alessandra reviewed the finances, the truth emerged. Apart from legitimate expenses covered by checks to caterers and other services, Patrizia had misused 43 million lire, approximately $27,000, from Alessandra's funds without proper accounting. Frustrated but resigned, Maurizio eventually settled the outstanding amount. The financial lesson he'd hoped to teach his daughter had instead revealed his ex-wife's character. Patrizia had stolen from her own daughter to fund an extravagant party, money that came from the very man she was already planning to kill. This incident occurred in September 1994. By that time, Patrizia was already putting her murderous plan into motion. The wheels of murder began turning through a combination of desperation, prejudice, and cold calculation. Pina Oriema, drowning in debt and grateful for Patrizia's financial support, found herself pressured into an unthinkable request. According to Pina's later testimony, delivered in her distinctive Neapolitan drawl marked by sardonic resignation, Patrizia approached her with the grim request to orchestrate Maurizio's murder. Patrizia lacked the courage to carry out the killing herself, but believed that Pina, being from southern Italy, must have connections to the criminal underworld. Pina's only acquaintance in Milan was Savioni, her friend's husband. Under relentless pressure from Patrizia, who viewed every day as a lost day, Pina approached Savioni, who in turn pressured Orazio Cicala, creating a deadly chain of coercion. Cicala, a debt-ridden gambler who had brought his family to ruin, initially showed little interest when Savioni approached him with knowledge of a woman who wanted her husband dead. But when pressed for a price, Cicala stated boldly, it will cost 500 million lire, roughly $310,000. The conspirators accepted his price, agreeing to pay half up front with the remainder due upon completion. Throughout fall 1994, as Maurizio enjoyed his newfound freedom with Paola, Cicala received 150 million lire, about $93,000, from Pina and Savioni, handed over in sealed yellow envelopes in multiple installments. But Cicala, overwhelmed by his debts and besieged by collectors, simply pocketed the money and did nothing to advance the murder plot. When Pina and Savioni demanded progress, he concocted elaborate lies. The assassins he'd supposedly recruited were arrested. The stolen getaway vehicle had vanished. When pressured to return the money, Cicala deflected. I already gave it to the people, and I can't get it back. By late 1994, Patricia's patience had evaporated. Frustrated by the lack of progress and suspecting she was being swindled, she made a fateful decision. She would take direct control of the murder plot. On a cold day in late January or early February 1995, just weeks before Maurizio's murder, Savioni appeared at Cicala's door and led him to a car where a woman sat in the front seat, wearing sunglasses. I am Patrizia Reggiani, she introduced herself, and I want my husband, Maurizio Gucci, dealt with. This face-to-face meeting between the vengeful ex-wife and the desperate gambler sealed Maurizio's fate. Patrizia questioned Cicala about the 150 million lire, the supposed arrests of his conspirators, and his need for more funds and time. Impatient and sensing urgency, Patrizia stressed, if I give you more money, you must guarantee this gets done. Time is running out. Then came the promise that cemented Cicala's resolve. Patrizia assured him that if he kept her out of it and got caught, your prison walls would be adorned with gold, enough reward for him and his family's future financial security. This vision of escaping his crushing debts through one violent act convinced Cicala to finally follow through on the murder contract. Over the following weeks, Pina constantly called Cicala about Maurizio's movements. Every conversation revolved around Maurizio Gucci, his schedule, his habits, his routines. The constant surveillance and planning exhausted Cicala, but the financial pressure kept him committed. Realizing he couldn't commit the assassination himself, Cicala enlisted a small-time drug dealer as the actual triggerman. Despite later accusations, Cicala would vehemently deny in court that Benedetto Caraulo was the shooter, too scared to vocalize the real hitman's name. The final pieces fell into place on Sunday night, March 26, 1995. Pina called Cicala with a cryptic message about Maurizio's return from a business trip. The package has arrived. The next morning, March 27th, as Maurizio showered and dressed in his marble bathroom, sharing breakfast and tender words with Paola, death was already waiting outside Via Palestro, 20. At 8:40 a.m., as Maurizio approached his office building for what he believed would be a routine day of meetings and future planning, Cicala and the hired killer were in position. The gunman exited the car, approached Maurizio under the pretense of checking building addresses, and in broad daylight, executed one of Milan's most prominent citizens. After Maurizio's murder, Pina's emotional state crumbled. She battled depression, anxiety, and paranoia, but managed to pull herself together long enough to make one revealing phone call. Shortly before Maurizio's funeral, Pina called Patrizia. So, have you heard the good news? Patrizia's response was chilling in its enthusiasm. Yes, I am fine. Fine with a capital F. I am finally at peace with myself, serene, and the girls are serene. This event has brought me immense tranquility and joy. While Pina confessed to taking tranquilizers and feeling suicidal, Patrizia dismissively advised her to pull yourself together and not exaggerate. It was all over, she assured Pina. Time to stay calm and maintain composure. Subsequently, Pina relocated to Rome, surviving on a monthly stipend of 3 million lire, approximately $1,600, that Patrizia provided. But secrets this dark cannot remain buried forever. When the investigation finally reached the courtroom, Pina took the witness stand and, in a moment of explosive defiance, requested to make an impromptu statement. Standing before Judge Samek, Pina leveled shocking accusations against Patrizia's mother, Silvana, claiming she was aware of the murder plot. According to Pina, Silvana had even contacted an Italian named Marcello months before Maurizio's murder, someone with connections to expanding Chinese gangs in Milan, though their negotiations supposedly fell apart over pricing disagreements. The revelations intensified when Patrizia's stepbrother, Enzo, sent a memorandum from Santo Domingo, not only implicating Silvana as an accomplice, but accusing her of expediting the death of Papi Reggiani to secure his estate. Though the Italian media sensationalized the notion of a mother-daughter predator team, no charges against Silvana ever materialized. Meanwhile, the courtroom witnessed the devastating testimony of Orazio Cicala himself. Brought from his prison cell, this hunched, toothless man contrasted starkly with his striking female lawyer as he recounted his tale in simple, unpolished Sicilian dialect. He painted himself as the pauper manipulated by the vindictive princess Patrizia, showcasing his story to the captivated courtroom. When defense lawyers attempted to maintain carefully constructed narratives, Cicala's raw confession shattered their efforts. The truth was finally emerging. This wasn't just a murder. It was the culmination of a wealthy woman's narcissistic rage when reality failed to match her expectations. Judge Samek's final verdict delivered a scathing assessment of Patrizia Reggiani's crimes. While recognizing her narcissistic personality disorder as a mitigating factor, resulting in a 29-year sentence rather than life imprisonment, his written opinion was deeply critical. He noted that Patrizia had orchestrated the murder of her ex-husband, finding willing individuals to carry out her vendetta through monetary incentives. Her animosity had been nurtured relentlessly, without any compassion for Maurizio, a man, a father to her children, who was finally at peace, healthy, and whom she had once presumably loved. Despite Maurizio's imperfections as perhaps an absent father and inattentive husband, in Patrizia's view, his unforgivable act was stripping her of considerable fortune and an esteemed name through divorce. This loss meant relinquishing status, privileges, and opulence she was unwilling to concede. Samek emphasized the severity of the crime, its lengthy premeditation, the financial motive, Patrizia's disregard for familial bonds through their daughters, and the sense of liberation she admitted feeling after Maurizio's death. The judge firmly asserted that Patrizia's personality disorder emerged when her life diverged from her aspirations. During favorable periods, she showed no signs of psychological distress, but once this equilibrium was disrupted, her behavior crossed all socially acceptable boundaries. Maurizio Gucci's tragic fate was sealed not because of his identity or personal qualities, but because of the wealth and name he possessed. Meanwhile, the immediate aftermath revealed the cold calculation that continued even after murder. While Paola Franchi grieved, visiting Maurizio's body at the morgue where she found him lying stomach down, a tiny hole in his temple, but otherwise appearing perfect and immaculate as he did when traveling or sleeping, Patrizia was already moving to secure assets. When Milan magistrate Nocerino questioned Paola about the murder, she revealed a chilling detail. In fall 1994, Maurizio's lawyer Franchini had warned him that Patrizia had told her lawyer of her desire to have Maurizio killed. Despite this alarming news, Maurizio had seemed less worried than Franchini, dismissing the threats with apparent nonchalance. The day after the murder, Patrizia arrived at Corso Venezia with a court official to seal off the house under a sequester request filed at 11 a.m. the previous day, just hours after Maurizio's death. When Paola protested the impossibly fast timing, she managed to convince the official to seal only one room by pleading for lenience. But Paola acted swiftly too. After learning from Franchini that their relationship contract remained unsigned and she had no legal claim to Maurizio's estate, She arranged for movers to load furniture, fixtures, drapes, china, and cutlery into 3 moving vans. Though Patrizia's lawyers later demanded everything back, Paola was allowed to keep some pieces she claimed ownership over, including a contested set of green silk living room draperies. What really happened when the spotlight faded? At Scoob, we dig past the headlines to explore the chilling truths behind celebrity crimes that left the world stunned, from iconic stars to public scandals. Our AI-powered platform reveals what the cameras didn't catch: the missing timelines, overlooked evidence, and motivations buried beneath fame. Each episode of Spotlight Murders is packed with compelling research, mysterious twists, and the human side of the story that mainstream media forgets. Whether you're fascinated by the final days of household names or curious about what justice looks like behind closed doors, Scoob keeps you hooked from first clue to final reveal. Join over 50,000 true crime fans who don't just want answers, they want understanding. Download Scoob today on the App Store or Google Play. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to Spotlight Murders for regular episodes that uncover the truth beneath the glamour. Returning to the Gucci murder in the pink-painted living room of the Corso Venezia apartment, beneath a massive oil portrait of Patrizia, whose expressive brown eyes gazed overhead, Silvana sat on the plush couch, repeatedly murmuring 29 years, as if repetition could nullify the reality of her daughter's sentence. The phone rang incessantly with calls from well-wishers, family members, and Patrizia's social worker from San Vittore prison, all offering sympathy and support to a family destroyed by greed and vengeance. But what makes this case so haunting isn't just the brutality of the murder, it's the senselessness of it all. Maurizio Gucci died not because he was evil, but because he dared to seek happiness after years of an unhappy marriage. He died because he chose love over luxury, authenticity over appearances. In his final months, Maurizio had discovered what money couldn't buy: genuine contentment. He'd shed the suffocating weight of corporate responsibility, embraced simple pleasures like morning jogs and antique shopping, and found in Paola Franchi a partner who loved him for himself, not his surname. The man who died on Via Palestro that March morning was finally free. Free from a loveless marriage, free from the crushing expectations of the Gucci empire, free to be simply Maurizio rather than a symbol of luxury and status. Perhaps that's what Patrizia couldn't forgive. Not just the loss of money or status, but the sight of her ex-husband thriving without her, proving that the life she'd constructed around wealth and appearances was ultimately hollow. Corporal Togliatti was right when he said Maurizio was a corpse, just like any other, to him professionally. But Maurizio Gucci was so much more than his surname or his wealth. He was a father trying to reconnect with his daughters, a man who'd finally found love, a person who chose gold, good luck charms, and Chinese fairy tales over corporate boardrooms. The murder of Maurizio Gucci stands as a stark reminder that sometimes the greatest danger comes not from strangers in dark alleys, but from those who once promised to love us until death do us part. Patrizia Reggiani took those vows literally, ensuring that death, indeed, was what finally parted them. In the end, she got her wish. Maurizio was gone, but so was everything else. The Gucci name she'd fought so desperately to keep became associated not with luxury and elegance, but with greed and murder. The daughters she claimed to protect were left without a father. The fortune she killed to preserve was lost in legal fees and investigations. Patrizia Reggiani destroyed everything she touched in pursuit of what she thought she deserved. And in a Milan courthouse, justice finally caught up with the Black Widow of Via Palestro. The only piece in this entire tragedy belongs to Maurizio Gucci himself. Finally free from the woman who couldn't let him go, finally at rest from a life that had demanded too much and given too little in return. In death, he found the tranquility that had eluded him for so many years of his remarkable, tragic life.